When the news broke that Ace Frehley had passed away, it sent shockwaves through the rock world. Frehley, the founding guitarist of Kiss, wasn't just another musician. He was an icon whose Spaceman persona and electrifying guitar solos helped define an entire generation of rock. The 74-year-old legend died on October 16, 2025, after suffering a fatal fall that caused blunt trauma head injuries. His death marked not only the end of an extraordinary life, but the loss of a creative force whose sound and image helped shape the DNA of modern rock. But what came next would move millions. A raw, deeply human moment from Gene Simmons, who transformed a charity concert into a heartfelt public farewell. On November 9, 2025, at the 34th Annual Love Ride Motorcycle and Music Charity event held at Castaic Lake in California, Gene Simmons paused his band's performance to speak directly to the crowd. Before launching into the Kiss classic Cold Gin, he took a breath and addressed the audience with sincerity that silenced the noise. "I want to take a moment," Simmons said, his voice thick with emotion. "Somebody I've known for decades who started the band with us, a guy named Ace Frehley." As chants of "Ace, Ace, Ace" filled the air, Simmons continued, "Very sad. Paul and myself and Peter Criss, we went to Ace's funeral. He sadly passed. And the saddest part of all, besides the pain and suffering to his family, his daughter, his wife, is that Ace didn't live long enough to be with us on December 6th, when the president and everybody's gonna honor Kiss. And in Ace's memory, we're gonna make sure one of the 4 chairs is empty with Ace's name, because he deserves to be there in spirit even if he can't be there physically." That statement captured the soul of the moment. Simmons wasn't performing grief, he was living it. He wasn't just paying tribute to a fallen guitarist, but preserving his place in history. Then, with resolve, he turned to his band and said, "So, one day, Ace walked in. The very first song he ever wrote, we're gonna do now. It's called Cold Gin." The crowd roared, and the familiar opening riff began, a bridge between past and present, life and legacy. To understand why this moment resonated so deeply, one must revisit who Ace Frehley was. Born Paul Daniel Frehley on April 27, 1951, in New York City, he grew up in a working-class Bronx family, obsessed with guitars and electricity, literally. He once worked as a roadie for Jimi Hendrix, a story he often told to illustrate how inspiration can become destiny. In 1973, Frehley auditioned for a new band formed by Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and Peter Criss. When he walked into that room wearing mismatched shoes and a burst of confidence, something clicked. That day, Kiss was born. Ace's contribution went beyond sound. His Spaceman persona, complete with silver makeup, glowing guitars, and cosmic charisma, helped define Kiss's theatrical DNA. He wasn't just playing notes, he was painting sound with light and smoke. His guitar solos became rock opera moments, complete with sparks and pyrotechnics that left fans in awe. His early songwriting proved equally vital. Cold Gin, one of the first songs he penned for the band, blended gritty New York realism with anthemic rock energy. Though Simmons sang it originally, the song was Ace's heart on tape, his sense of survival, street smarts, and rebellion. That's why Simmons's decision to resurrect it during his tribute carried such emotional gravity. It was Ace's musical birthright, his first stamp on rock history, and now his posthumous anthem. The Morris County, New Jersey medical examiner confirmed that Ace Frehley's death was accidental, a result of blunt trauma head injuries and multiple skull fractures after a fall in his home. The report also noted facial and thigh bruises consistent with the impact. At 74, Ace was far from retired. He was reportedly working on a new solo record and collaborating with younger artists who idolized him. His death, therefore, felt not like a natural curtain call, but an interruption, a pause in a song that hadn't finished. So, when Gene Simmons stood on that stage weeks later, the grief was still raw. He wasn't just speaking as a bandmate, but as a brother who had shared tours, fame, conflict, and reconciliation. The empty chair at the upcoming Kennedy Center Honors, reserved for Ace, became a symbol of that bond, a quiet protest against forgetting. The Love Ride wasn't the Grammys or a glitzy award show. It was a grassroots charity event, attended by bikers, veterans, and everyday rock fans. Yet, in that setting, Simmons found the perfect stage, stripped of glamour, filled with heart. His words felt intimate, the kind that bypass pretense. He reminded the audience that fame fades, but friendship doesn't. He reminded them that behind the paint and pyrotechnics stood four men, Gene, Paul, Peter, and Ace, whose shared dream built a rock empire. When Simmons mentioned Ace's family, his voice cracked slightly, a rare glimpse of vulnerability from a man known for his larger-than-life persona. It was no longer about the spectacle. It was about loss, memory, and the strange, sacred duty of musicians to honor one another when the music stops. As Cold Gin played, fans said it felt as though Ace himself was there, invisible yet present in every chord. Videos later posted online captured audience members raising their hands skyward, some crying, others simply mouthing the lyrics. For those few minutes, rock became ritual. The empty chair that Simmons promised to keep for Ace at the Kennedy Center Honors carried enormous weight. Scheduled for December 6, 2025, the event would recognize Kiss for their lifetime contribution to American music. Simmons insisted that one seat among the four honorees remain unoccupied, labeled simply Ace Frehley. That gesture transformed private mourning into public acknowledgement. It said Ace's story is inseparable from ours. It said even if death removes the man, his presence endures in what we built together. For fans, the symbolism resonated instantly. The image of an empty chair became a metaphor, a space held open for creativity, friendship, and unfinished songs. Within hours, the footage from Love Ride went viral. Rock blogs, tribute pages, and social media platforms filled with messages of gratitude. "Gene Simmons just gave the best tribute I've ever seen," one fan wrote. Another said, "It wasn't flashy. It was honest. You could feel Ace in that moment." Music outlets covered the story, describing it as a moving, sincere moment of closure between legends. For longtime Kiss fans, the performance bridged decades of band drama. Over the years, Simmons and Frehley had both traded barbs in interviews, their friendship often strained by business and ego. Yet on that stage, none of that mattered. Simmons's tribute transcended old tensions, proving that shared history outweighs past friction. Ace Frehley's influence stretched far beyond Kiss. His distinct vibrato, melodic solos, and unpretentious swagger shaped generations of guitarists. Artists from Pantera, Pearl Jam, and Tool have cited him as a formative influence. His solo album Ace Frehley, released in 1978, went platinum and remains one of the most successful solo records by any Kiss member. His signature Les Paul guitars became collector's items, and his style, that mix of melody, distortion, and personality, remains one of rock's most recognizable sounds. Gene Simmons' decision to honor that legacy publicly ensured that Ace wouldn't just be remembered as a former Kiss member, but as an artist who changed the very texture of rock. For decades, Gene Simmons has cultivated the persona of a shrewd businessman and unstoppable frontman. But in that moment, he revealed something deeper: empathy, gratitude, and humility. He didn't hide behind metaphors. He spoke plainly. "He didn't live long enough to be with us," he said. And in those few words lay the essence of grief, not bitterness, just sadness that time ran out. To the untrained eye, it was a rock concert. To those who understood, it was a farewell between brothers who once conquered the world together. This tribute extended beyond music. It reflected how people, even global icons, process loss. Simmons showed that remembering someone publicly isn't about glorifying the past, but keeping it alive. He turned a rock stage into a memorial chapel, a space where grief met gratitude. For young fans who never saw the original Kiss lineup, the performance became a history lesson. They learned who Ace Frehley was and why he mattered. And for older fans, it was closure. A final bow for the man whose riffs once lit arenas aflame. In the months since Frehley's death, fans have created their own tributes, candlelight vigils, mural art, even guitar covers of Cold Gin and Shock Me. The Love Ride moment remains the touchstone, the emotional anchor for all these expressions. When future documentaries recount Kiss's legacy, they will likely include that November night, Gene Simmons standing under the California sky, speaking not as a performer, but as a friend. Because in the end, legacy isn't built by fame or fortune. It's built by remembrance. Ace Frehley's name will forever echo in the corridors of rock history, and Gene Simmons made sure of that. His on-stage tribute was more than a eulogy. It was a vow, a promise that Ace's chair, though empty, would never be forgotten. The music world often loses its heroes, but few farewells feel this genuine. Simmons transformed grief into melody, absence into presence, and silence into applause. As the crowd sang along that night, one truth became undeniable. Ace Frehley might be gone, but his sound, his laughter, his riffs, his cosmic energy will never fade. And through Gene Simmons' voice, his story continues. Rock lives on because memory does.